Welcome back to Purpose of Life, Purpose and Life. We are talking with Dr. Simon, President of Shaping Generations. Dr. Simon, it's very interesting you're talking about this covenant, MOU, and MOU is two-part obligation. And we're talking about the faith of Abraham. But Abraham had a very unique position with God. Yes, when Lord said, Abraham took a stand and said, God is with me, so you go whatever side, but he was so confident about God's position.
Yeah.
But then there's another part of Abraham and God dealing with Abraham on the negotiating part, and explain that part. Why would God even negotiate with Abraham on that context? Explain that situation.
Okay. Firstly, when God was calling Abraham, he knew that Abraham had a family.
Right.
And one of the members of the family was Lot.
Right.
So he did not establish with him from the abstract. He said, as part of the package, when you leave, it's you, Abraham, leave you and your household.
Correct. It was very clear.
So it was part of the MOU that he left with them.
Right.
So when it came a point when Lot went to Sodom and Gomorrah, and then he was going on the other side,
right,
when things were not right, and one interesting part is that as part of the MOU, both parties have to be sincere. They have to open up to one another.
That's very crucial.
Very crucial. So Abraham needed to offload what was in his heart, and God, as part of the MOU, needed to offload what was on his heart. And so often God would say, but I can't hide this from Abraham.
What a statement for God to make.
I can't hide this from Abraham. Why? Because he left the land of terror with Lot. Lot was part of the package in the MOU because he was related to Abraham. And so he said, I can't hide this. So he said, I'm going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And then he said, but hey, God, wait a minute. We have an MOU. If there is 50 faithful people, are you going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? I said, for the sake of those 50, I will not. What about 40? What about 30? What about 20? And then he said, well, with this number, I'm comfortable that Lot will survive. So the MOU, when God makes a promise with you, when he establishes a covenant with you, he will not break it, and he will not keep secrets from you. And this is how unique a relationship was between Abraham and God. Abraham offloaded, and God offloaded, and that's it. And this is why he is called a man of faith, and that his faith became equal to righteousness, just as God is righteous. Abraham became righteous because of his faith, based on the covenant which was established.
What is also revealing is God doesn't keep secrets.
Not at all.
If we are in his MOU, God also shares his secrets to us.
Yes.
So that's an interesting point coming out here very clearly. Because God is not able to hold that point, and he says, how can I hold this?
How can I hold it?
So that's a very unique relationship which Abraham had, and which I think you and I can have that relationship if we follow the MOU.
If we follow the MOU, God will apply the same principle as he applied with Abraham.
Okay, but the package comes with a lot of testing, a lot of twists and turns in the story of Abraham. And my question next now is, Abraham now goes to rescue Lot. But why is it that Lot didn't see the way which Lot was a completely different leader in his own style, but he missed the mark, unlike his uncle? What are the lessons we learn from this experience with understanding Lot's life, seeing a little bit part of understanding, just to give it a little digression, what do we learn from that part?
Okay. There are two different people here.
Yes.
One who is in the covenant and one who is not in the covenant.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Even if the one who is in the covenant covers even those that are not in the covenant, who are part of the family,
right,
the one who is not in the covenant always would make wrong choices. And this is the reason why in the world we have good people, all good people, but making all the wrong choices.
Good people making the right choices.
making the wrong choices.
Right.
In fact, even with God, when he says no one does good, no, not one, it's up to the choices. So Abraham will make the right choices because he is in the covenant. And Lot will not make the right choices because he's not in the covenant. And that's why we are all called to be in a covenant relationship with God to avoid all the wrong choices.
And you also said we need to renew the covenant.
We have to renew the covenant every time. When you are in the covenant, of course, it comes with conditions. Conditions is there should be a meeting. We should all agree on this. And the meeting point in the context of Abraham was always an altar. This is a meeting place, and this is where God descends, and then Abraham goes. And that's it. So we see Lot, he's there, covered because of his uncle's, his uncle's covenant, but he still makes the wrong choices every time.
And he saw the greener side.
He saw the greener side.
But he didn't see God's perspective.
Very, very bad sight.
Okay.
Very bad.
That's a good point to learn.
Yeah.
And I think it also applies to everyone, even in today's life. Moving on, Abraham faces another big test in his life. I think the biggest test in his life. God promises him 75 years old that God will bless him, make him a great nation. He moves on. He's getting older. But still, the nation is not there. He doesn't have children. Lot of questions. Explain the fact of how does he still hold on to that point in spite of the fact that he's not seeing what God has told him that will happen.
It was a rough test.
Yeah. How do we hold on to God's promise?
And the reason is that God's covenant with Abraham was also meant not only for Abraham's alone, but also for everyone else that sees the life of Abraham.
Right.
And you know, God is bringing this light in darkness. So Abraham being faithful, he becomes the victim of everything that comes, not only for his sake, but for the sake of others. You see, for the sake of Lot, even for the sake of the king of Sodom who just says and says, can I give you? And so on and so forth. You know? So, what am I trying to say? We are seeing Abraham in a position of tests to a point that sometimes he was squeezed to the corner because he was human. That's the first thing. At 80. And then his wife even said, hey man, this promise is becoming so tough.
Yeah, we're getting old.
You are getting old. Maybe let's try our way. He tried his way. They had Ishmael through Hagar. And then the Lord said,
God's plan.
It's not God's plan. This is not, the MOU did not indicate that you should do things out of your own thinking. Don't break the covenant. And, you know, God continued and said, you will have your first son from Sarah. And Ishmael was not even counted as a firstborn because when it came to the sacrifice, you could only sacrifice the firstborn, the first fruit. And God reversed all that. He says it's Isaac. You know? So things like that. So that test was really tough. And that's why Abraham's life, during his lifetime, I do not even know if he believed he was living in faith.
Oh, during his time.
During his time. All he did was he was acting in obedience. And it's God that qualified him and accredited him as righteousness, as a man in the covenant with him.
So as you said, it's a pretty, the MOU is intact, but it's not bed of roses.
Not at all.
Not bed of roses.
No. It was a rough one.
Yeah,
it was a rough one.
And if you make a choice out of the MOU, that's when the problem starts.
Yeah.
Because God's promises are still intact, but it takes time.
It takes time. It takes time.
It's not taking time because of God's delay. It's taking time because God wants you to come to that maturity. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely. Yes.
So
you have to, you know, when we define the faith as a substance of the things hoped for, you have to reach that level of maturity where you say, I do not doubt God anymore. because he is faithful and he has sworn by oath. So I will move with it.
Okay.
And this is the reason why when it came to the sacrifice of his son, it was very easy for Abraham to just say, well, even if I love my son and he is a child of the covenant, and that through him the descendants shall come, God still, Abraham still took on the act to go and sacrifice him. Tug of war again. You love your son, you have to obey God.
Correct.
You have to respect the MOU. What a tug of war. And he hides it even from his wife.
Yeah, I'm sure the wife would not have allowed him.
He would not have allowed him. You know, he hides it completely from him. And he goes on. He takes the two servants, let's go. And then they reach a certain place. He says, no, you stay here. We have to go. The child asked the Lord, Abraham even hides from the son. The son said, we have wood and we have this. He says, where is the sacrifice? He says, the Lord will provide. The MOU meant that the two hearts meet with God. So, and that is the point where we see the first words proceed from God. Now I know that you love me. So that it raises a very interesting point. Did God know that Abraham loved him from the beginning, or he would be simply obedient? Because at that point, that's when he simply says, now, he started with the word now, now I know that you love me.
So from 75, from the time when God spoke, till 99, or whatever time after Abraham gets Isaac, until this point what you're saying, was a process of maturing.
It was a process of maturity. And here is an interesting thing. When Abraham was almost 90 years, which was the toughest time, he needed to see God, actually the footprints of God on earth. So he started searching. And this is very interesting, because all along he believes this is God, he's invisible, we are in an MOU, we are moving, and Abraham is just there. At 90, he said, I think I have to find another formula. Let me see God in people, let me see God in trees, let me see God in everything. So he began to behave in a crazy way, because he reached a point when he's supposed to give out as part of the MOU. Whoever he sees walking by the road, he says, come to my place and have something to eat. Whoever he found, come, I want to share. In doing so, he sees three men and he pleads with them. They said, we don't want to come. He said, please come, just have some water at my place. And then, as they were taking the water, he did a barbecue for them. They were sitting. And they said, hey, something unique is happening here. They said, we have hidden this from Abraham. I think it's time to tell him. By this time next year, you will have a son. So when Abraham began to see God's presence as a substance, now a real substance, not just something hoped for, not something hoped for or confidence in something that is not seen. Now he began to see God as a substance. God became matter, who you can touch, you can greet. So Abraham, when he reached that point, he met God. And this is what happens in the New Testament as well. When God became matter, when God became a human being, we entered into a true covenant with him. And immediately, Abraham discovered God as a matter, as one who can be a friend, who can be greeted and touched and invited for a meal and stay overnight and have a relationship constantly. The covenant was made. Isaac came forth.
Isaac came forth. Dr. Simon, I think there's more to dig in this topic because
Absolutely.
of lack of time. We'll take this part to the third part of understanding and decoding the faith of Abraham. I'm saying decoding the faith of Abraham because there's so much to dig from Abraham's life. And in this program, we understand that the MOU is so important, and keeping the MOU intact is so important. And the MOU involves implicit obedience, complete obedience, irrespective of all your circumstance. And that's what Abraham did. We also learned in the earlier program about the heart, about the covenant, about the altar. We also spoke this time about the MOU.
The MOU.
So we'll talk a little bit more
and
deeper.
God becoming physical matter.
Yes.
That the moment you begin to see him as a real substance,
yes.
the promise is made manifest.
Yes.
So all along, 75 years old, 80 years old, 90 years old, because Abraham did not see God as a physical matter, but as just someone to be believed in,
Right.
the promise was not fulfilled. The moment he saw that I can touch him, I can greet him, I can have fellowship with him,
then things changed.
Then things changed, and God said, this is now the time.
So in other words, if he has not invited them, he would have missed this also.
He would have missed it.
Number one, right?
Because
so it can come close to you, but you got to identify and do the invitation part.
You have to identify and do your part.
So that was very key.
Very key. Very key to
and he
the
requested them to stay back.
He said, stay back, and he gave them food. Then it was God.
So a lot of learnings, Dr. Simon.
A lot of learning. And when you proceed, it went also to his son Jacob. Just one thing. When he saw God as matter and wrestled with him, God blessed him and gave him the name of Israel.
Correct. That's another interesting topic.
You know, so when God becomes matter, you have a breakthrough. When God became man in the person of Jesus Christ, salvation was made manifest. When God becomes a real being in our lives,
things change.
Things change. It's game changing.
That's the key aspect. And we'll do another program on the faith of Abraham. But thanks for joining us. And friends, we're talking about the program Purpose of Life, and the topic is the faith of Abraham. There's a number there. There's some details there. Contact us, and we'll be happy to help you. But don't miss the next part of understanding and decoding Abraham's life, the faith of Abraham. And we'll be joined with Dr. Simon, President of Shaping Generations. Don't miss the next program.